Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sebastian Tremblay, and I will be your moderator. Before we begin, please note that this press conference includes simultaneous and sign language interpretation services. It is available in either full French or in full English. If you're watching live, you can find our stream in each language on YouTube. Simply search our channels at City of Ottawa or Ville d'Ottawa. A note to media outlets joining us on Zoom, if you would like audio interpretation, click the interpretation globe icon in the bottom menu, then select your preferred language. You can ask your questions in the language of your choice. Today, we will be hearing remarks from Renee Amalkar, General Manager, Transit Services Department, Troy Charter, Director, Transit Service Delivery and Rail Operations, Richard Holder, Director, Engineering Services, Mario Guerra, Chief Executive Officer and Acting General Manager of Burrito Transit Maintenance, and Nicolas Truchon, Chief Executive Officer of Burrito Transit Group. At this time, I would like to invite Renee Amalkar to say a few words.
Bonjour à tous, merci beaucoup Sébastien, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for an update on the status of the train line 1. Earlier this morning, 5 trains experienced a loss of power on line 1 during a significant freezing rain event. To our customers who were impacted, we understand your frustration and disappointment. I would like to thank our emergency service partners, such as Ottawa Fire Services, who helped our staff safely evacuate our customers under difficulty ice conditions. I understand many customers are disappointed by this event after what took place in January. In anticipation of today's forecasted freezing rain, trains run continuously overnight. 13 trains ran this morning and 10 were equipped with winter carbons. These devices help reduce ice buildup on the overhead wires. Despite these precautions, 5 vehicles became immobilized and customers had to be safely evacuated. With the rapidly evolving situation across the system, we chose to suspend service on line 1. Air bus service is operating and will remain in place until line 1 is safe to reopen. Today, key staff from OC Transpo and Rideau Transit Group are here to answer your questions. Troy Charter will provide an update on the current status of O-Train Line 1. Richard Holder may be delayed because he had some issue with his internet. He should be discuss our investigation of this morning's service disruption. Finally, Nicolas Truchon from Rideau Transit Group and Mario Guerra from Rideau Transit Maintenance will provide an update on service recovery and explain our next steps. Thank you everyone for your time today. Merci beaucoup à vous tous. Et j'aimerais ça passer la parole maintenant à Troy Charter. Troy, s'il vous plaît.
Let's give the floor to Troy Charter. Thank you, Renee.
Throughout the day, our 1 bus service has been running between Tunney's Pasture and Blair stations at approximately a 10-minute frequency. We also have shuttle buses running between Searville and Saint Laurent stations. We currently R1 is running at approximately between a 10 and 15 minute headway, so frequency. And customers, as Madame Amalkar has mentioned, customers can expect that R1 service will continue to operate until line 1 is safely restored. Our Transit Operations Control Center is monitoring the demand for R1 service in real time and adjusting when possible to support customers as best we can. Today's decrease in ridership as a result of the weather event has allowed us to minimize the disruptions caused to other parts of the system while deploying R1 service. We will continue to use all available communication channels, both in person and online, to advise customers of service changes and to help with travel planning. Additionally, signage has been installed and OC Transpo staff are on site to provide customer service support and direction to R1 at key transfer points and locations. To echo what Madame Amalkar has mentioned, I know that this is a very frustrating situation for our customers, but we do ask that we please do give yourself some extra time to get to your destination. Our priority is the safety of our customers as well as our team. Thank you very much. I believe I'll hand things over right now to Mario.
Yes, hi. RTG continues to monitor the weather event with a goal to return back to revenue service Our focus is to do so as soon as possible. We continue to assess the ice buildup. As the temperature is increasing, we're seeing that that's having a positive effect on the ice that's on the system. We're going to focus in the west end of the city to try and get that area back up in service. We're going to try and get Tunney's to of Ottawa running first. So our crews are out there right now assessing the ice, and hopefully we'll be able to get the power back on and turn those vehicles and get going soon. Once we're able to do that in the west end and clear some of that ice, then we'll look to start powering up the rest of the system. As was noted before, we do have a number of vehicles that are stranded. So our first efforts will be to rescue those vehicles and get them back to the MSF, and then look to see what state the OCS is in by conducting an inspection, and then start getting the system back up and running section by section. With regards to the stations, we've had crews out all day to ensure that when we do return back to service, the stations are free of any ice and tripping hazards for the customers so that we can get back to service as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I will now invite each media agency to ask their questions. You may ask one question with one follow-up. We'll now start with Cindy Tran at the Canadian Press.
Hi, good afternoon. My first question is, can you confirm the cause of the power outage? There hasn't been specifics that say that it was the freezing rain, and was it the freezing rain that caused the immobilization of those 5 trains and the pause in general?
Mario, can you take it, please?
Yes, thank you for the question. So what actually causes when the OCS or the overhead wire that supplies the power has ice on it, the pantograph on the vehicle is not making good contact, and therefore we see big fluctuations in voltage. And when the vehicle sees that, it would shut down to protect itself. And unfortunately, in this particular event, we did see these huge fluctuations, and that's what caused the vehicles to shut down. The vehicles are operating exactly as designed in this particular situation.
Okay, and then back in February, city staff had informed council that a lot of short-term and long-term solutions were in place to mitigate the train stopping. One of the things that were in the talks was a procurement of a non-electric vehicle to recover some of these immobilized trains. I was wondering, has there been any movement on that front?
Yeah, so we do have a number of, we did form a working group made up of experts, both from RTM and the cities, as well as other staff. And we do have a number of initiatives. Unfortunately, some of those take some time. One initiative that you saw today being applied was to increase the number of vehicles out on the line to keep vehicles moving to try and prevent ice buildup. So we did have, as Madame Mbakar noted earlier, 13 trains out there. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough. We continue to look at other methods to try and keep the ice out. Unfortunately, these are more long-term, and we hope to have some of those in place before next winter.
Thank you so much. We will now go to Joanne Chianello at CBC Ottawa. Joanne, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was
There you
having trouble unmuting. Hi. All right, I'm just going to follow up a little bit more on Cindy's question about exactly how these trains lost power, because it's just sort of like, well, there's just ice. I mean, my goodness, are they going to lose power every time we have an ice storm? So if I could hear from Mario, and also if Richard is on the line, exactly what happened with all 5 trains, how they lost power, what the problem was, because it was early in the day. It's not like in the afternoon when there's this heavy buildup, and how many trains are still out there stuck. Thanks.
So if you think about the ice that forms around the wire acts as an insulator. So when the pantograph tries to draw power to power up, the vehicle is unable to do so, and therefore the voltage drops significantly. And when the vehicle sees this, it will shut itself down because it doesn't see it as a normal event. And that's what happened here with all these vehicles. Is it sensed the voltage, a loss of voltage fluctuating, and it shut itself down to protect itself. Sorry, I forget the second part of your question, Joanne.
Just, this is not my follow-up, but just, we're just confirming how many trains are still stuck.
We have 5 trains fail, but we do have, Troy can maybe answer how many are still out there.
Apologies, as we indicated earlier, we stopped service once we started to experience these issues. So there was 5 trains that were immobilized, and we have the rest of the trains that were in service are still out on the line right now because we chose to leave them there to protect the rest of the infrastructure and prevent any further damage, which may result in further delays in returning to service.
So Troy, how many are out there?
Just give me 1 minute, I can count the number, but
Appreciate it.
my apologies. I'll count the number, but it was 5 immobilized, and I'll tell you how many there are out on the line.
Sure, I'm sure everybody would like to hear that whenever you have that and whether they're stuck. So my follow-up is on communications, and this is probably a city question. You know, we heard from people who were stuck in a train over the Rideau River on the bridge for 1 hour. They said they heard just a quick thing from the operator saying, I'm going to find out what's happening. And then they heard nothing back again for over an hour until the fire department was there, cutting the fence off and getting them out. They were afraid. They were worried. Some people were anxious. Some people were wondering if they should try to get out themselves. Why was there no communication given to these folks?
Troy, do you have something to say?
Thank you for raising that, Joanne. That's definitely something we'll look into as part of our debrief. We do try to communicate with our customers, both on trains and stations, and that may be coming towards the system as well. We try to communicate as much as possible to them. So that is surprising to me that there wasn't more communications, and that's something we'll look into because our operators are on the train, and we do send supervisors and other support staff to vehicles that are immobilized to communicate with customers. So that'll be part of our debrief. We do have standard operating procedures in place that require the operator to communicate to customers. And as I mentioned, we do send staff to vehicles so that customers are aware that help is on the way and to assure them, that we're taking the right steps. Today, things were a little bit delayed, longer than normal, given the weather conditions that were going on, and we wanted to be extra safe in getting people off the trains. So we asked for our emergency response providers to attend. Due to the slippery conditions outside the train, we took some extra steps to try to clear as much ice and put some salt product down at certain locations. So that delayed some of the customers getting off the trains. And Joanne, to answer your earlier question, as Mario indicated, we did have 13 trains in operations. There's 13 trains on the line right now, of which 5 were stopped.
Thank you so much for your questions,
Okay.
Joanne.
Can I just clarify?
Joanne,
whether
if we're done,
I
we'll
just
come
want to know
back.
if those 13 trains are stuck or they're just stopped there, just for a factual thing.
We had 5 that are stopped. The other remaining trains were still in motion at the time that we ceased service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Marina von Stackelberg at CBC The National.
But they're not in. There's no way they won't be stuck now.
Joanne, you're.
Hi there. Oh, Joanne, I think you've still got your mic on. Hi there. Thanks for taking our questions. This rail system has a reputation of being completely unable to perform in these kinds of winter conditions. So what do you say to people who see the LRT as a joke?
Sorry, Marina, we just lost Brene for a second. She's just connecting again. There we go. She's back on the line. Can you repeat your question?
Yep, absolutely. The rail system has a reputation of being completely unable to perform in these kinds of winter conditions. We've seen it before. What do you say to people, including many that I talked to today, who see the LRT as a joke?
Thank you for the question. Definitively, it's not ideal what we have to face with today, and I think we will need.
I'm sorry, Marina. We seem to be having some technical issues with Renee's internet. I think if you have another question, please ask it now, and we'll try to see if we can sort out Renee's
no problem.
internet.
Yeah, no problem. The other question I wanted to ask for is you said it's going to be down as long as it needs to be. Do you have any idea as to when it will be back up? Like, are we talking hours, days, weeks?
No, at this point, no. Our teams are out there right now evaluating the situation with the ice. We want to make sure that when we do return back to service, it's safe for operation and that we don't damage any of the infrastructure, which will cause further delays. So we want to be 100% sure. So it's really hard to give you a timeline at this point.
Okay, am I able to ask my previous question?
Renee is not here, so if you don't mind, we'll just move on to the next person, and if he comes back, we can come back to you.
Okay, well, no, when she comes back, I'd like to have an answer to that question. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to Ted Raymond at CTV Ottawa. Ted.
Hi there. Just before I begin, and I just want to clarify what Troy said just in response to Joanne's question about the number of trains. You had 13 out, 5 are stopped. So does that mean you have 8 that are still moving right now, or are all the trains stopped on the line?
I can clarify that. So all the trains are stopped in line. So when we started to have the issues with the trains, the situation escalated very, very rapidly. We made the decision to quickly stop all service on the rail line to prevent the potential for other damage to the infrastructure, as well to prevent the potential for other trains being stranded in between stations. So we stopped all vehicles, but at the time in which service was halted across the entire line, there were 5 vehicles that were unable to continue in service and were immobilized.
Okay. Do you know how long it's going to take to get those 5 vehicles off the tracks?
I mean, I can. I mean, once the system's back up and running with power, we expect that we should be able to get the vehicles back up and running and reset the current situation that they're in. So the key here is to get the system back up and running and get powered up again.
But you don't know how long that's going to take to get it back up and running.
You mean the vehicles themselves?
Well, the system in general, like if you
No,
need
at this point,
system,
I don't want to speculate. I don't know. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
I don't know at this point how long it's going to take us. It really is very weather dependent at this time.
Okay. So and just sorry. So one last question I have just about the situation that you're in with these stopped trains. They're around like the Lees River area. Do you know if or would you say if because you have to run the trains more slowly in that part of the track, would that have contributed to ice building up more than it should have, so that you couldn't, the winter carbons didn't work?
Well, that area seems to be the worst area on the system, as we had problems with it earlier in January. But at this time around, the storm was such that we experienced failures in multiple locations throughout the city. So, although we still do believe that that's probably our worst area in the system.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Marina, do you want to give one more try now that we have Renee back after internet
Can you
issues?
hear me?
Yes. You open on Renee.
Okay,
Yeah.
merci.
I can hear you. Thank you. Okay, for the third time, this rail system has a reputation of being completely unable to perform in these types of winter conditions. It's happened before. I talked to a lot of people today who are very frustrated. What do you say to those people who see the LRT as a complete joke?
Okay, merci beaucoup pour la question et désolé pour mon petit problème d'Internet. Je comprends que...
Well, I understand that people are frustrated, and I said that in my introduction today. I think we have to be patient. We're working on the right things, and I understand that people might say that this is a joke, of course, but you must know that we're taking this very seriously. And today, what happened today, the mitigation measures had been put in place, and we continue to work on long and medium-term mitigation measures. We'll do an assessment of what happened today, because we prepared for today. But I think what we have to take out of today is that we took the right decisions, we acted quickly, and the situation evolved very, very quickly. And what was the most important for us was to ensure the safety of the passengers and also to protect our infrastructure so that we can provide a reliable service as soon as possible.
I need that answer in English, please.
There's a simultaneous interpretation available, so we can.
I need it for English because I'm with CBC The National, so I need the clip in English, please. Even just 20 seconds is fine.
Yeah, okay, no worries.
Thanks.
I think I said it earlier. It's disappointed for our customers, and it's disappointed for myself also, because we put mitigation measures in place, and we learned about the experience that we had in January 4th, and unfortunately that didn't work today, and we are going to investigate better to make sure that we know exactly what happened and to be able to fix the problem. But again, I will ask customers to be patient with us. I know it's frustrating and I can fully understand, but we are doing the right thing. We're doing the best thing to be able to deliver a reliable service and a safe service as well.
Merci René. On va maintenant à Charles-Antoine Gagnon avec le droit.
Charles-Antoine Gagnon from Le Droit. Hello.
One train that got stuck on the bridge over the Rideau River. Can you tell me where were the 4 other trains that got stuck?
Troy, do you have this answer, please?
Answer that question. So there's one train that was stopped just east of Tunney's Pasture Station. We had one train that stopped as it came into Rideau Station from Ottawa, so it was traveling eastbound direction. There's 2 trains that are stopped between Lees and Herdman Station. So that's one of the trains that you just mentioned. And then there was another train that is stopped just east of Tremblay Station.
Okay, thanks. Can you tell me, or do you know how many people had to be evacuated from these trains? Approximately?
Unfortunately, I don't have an estimate in the number of riders that were impacted by this, but I can say that due to the weather conditions, it was lower ridership than what we have been experiencing recently, but I don't have a count at this time.
Thanks.
Merci. We will now go to Taylor Blewett at the Ottawa Citizen.
Thanks so much. When it comes to evacuations from immobilized trains, is there a plan or protocol in place for that kind of situation? If so, was it followed in this instance? If not, do you think there ought to be?
I can take that answer. Yes, we do have standard operating procedures and practices in place for evacuations of trains. They do have to be tailored to the circumstances that we face, whether it's a train that's just outside a station or a train on the elevated guideway on the approach to Herdman. So they are situational to a certain degree, but first and foremost, and it's a takeaway that I have is to communicate to customers what's going on and deploy staff. We would never ask customers to exit a train on their own without being escorted by either emergency response personnel or trained OC Transpo personnel. But this will be part of our operational debrief following this event, and we'll do a complete review. But we do have operational procedures and processes in place. They appear to be followed, but obviously I do have to follow up on the communication aspect that Ms. Canella raised earlier.
And can you speak specifically to the measures that were in place ahead of today's weather that were different from what would have existed back in January, like changes that have come since the January experience that were in place today ahead of the weather event?
Richard?
Yes, thanks, Renee. I can address that. So after the January event, the city worked with RTM to create a working group, and we brought in experts both from RTM side and from the city side with lots of experience of working on OCSs in cold climates. And so the recommendations that came out of that working group that we were able to implement straight away were to run as many trains as possible. So last night we had we had vehicles running through the night. And then for the start of service this morning, we had 13 trains running, and we had so the purpose of that is to keep the line free of ice as much as possible. Most of those trains were also fitted with winter carbons, which has a more aggressive edge than our normal pantographs, so that aids in scraping off the ice. And so that protocol that we put in place today was not there in January, but it has been effective, for instance, last month when we had a freezing rain event. And so, but unfortunately, despite those measures today, we still ended up with an immobilized train on track 2 between Lees and Herdman. And then we had, unfortunately, this cascading event, series of events where vehicles became immobilized, and in the end caused the city to take the decision to suspend service.
Thank you, and thank you, Taylor. On va maintenant à Frédéric Pépin avec Radio-Canada.
Frédéric Pépin from Radio-Canada. Hello, a question for you, Ms. Amilcar, if you're still there. I hope you've sorted your technical issues. So each time there's a freezing rain in Ottawa, do we understand that passengers should expect a breakdown in service? That's my question for you. Thank you for your question, Mr. Pépin. I think we said this in January. The train has been running since 2019 without a major event linked to freezing rain. We know there were issues in January. Now we've taken measures to protect the train, and the questions we're asking ourselves now is whether the train is too sensitive to changes in voltage. This is what we're seeing, I think. So the answer to your question is no. The people should not be concerned. People will be able to take the train no matter what the temperature. Trains have been designed for Nordic temperatures like the ones we have here in Ottawa. But currently, we're thinking that there might be an issue. We thought last time that the problem was linked to ice buildup and that there wasn't enough scrapers, but we've seen this is not the case. So we're going to extend our investigation to see whether it's perhaps the fact that our trains are too sensitive, but it's far too early to actually come to any conclusion. But trains have run in worse conditions than the ones we had today and in January without this type of problem. Ms. Amilcar, could you answer the question in English about whether it will be a problem each time we have a freezing rain event?
What I was saying, it's we have to continue our investigation to make sure that it's not another problem that caused that, because we know since 2019 we run those trends and we never had any problem related to freezing rain. So now we know that we had a modification a few months ago with the power supply. Is it that they're too sensitive and the train reacts very too quickly? We don't know. We have to continue the investigation on that. But definitively, yes, the train can run here in Ottawa with all temperature, and we will continue to work on the investigation.
Ma deuxième question, Madame Amilcar, si vous pouvez
My second question, if you could answer, or one of your colleagues could. I don't know if you have you've seen the message on Twitter. There was a user who asked you why, where there's no antifreeze on the cables, as is done in other Canadian cities. Is there antifreeze applied to the cables? And might it be one of the areas of possible solution? Thank you for your question. This is something we're analyzing. The last time in January, we looked at the potential for using antifreeze spray on the wires. We're even looking at a heated wire system to prevent ice buildup. So this is something we're working on. We're also working on a long-term solution, which requires less maintenance. A spray applied to hundreds of meters of cable. Well, that would take a long time. We need a much more sustainable approach, and that's what we're looking at. Thank you, Fred.
With the Ottawa Lookout.
Hi there. I want to start off with, I guess, kind of a technical question. Looking at the trains, you said that they saw weird voltage fluctuations, so they shut down. Are you aware of any damage to either the trains, the overhead wire system, or sort of anything to do with the LRT at all?
No, at this point, we're not. That's one of the reasons why the action was taken to suspend service, was to protect the vehicles and the infrastructure from any damage, as was the case the last time. So at this point, we're not aware of anything.
Okay, excellent. And I guess my second question is more philosophical and maybe for Renee, but can people at this point trust taking OC Transpo to get them where they need to go when they need to get there?
Yes, we know that we are facing with the problems, but we're working on them, and we reacted very quickly. This decision that we took this morning was very an important one, to decide to shut down the system because we put safety first.
Thank you, Robert. If there are any reporters with an additional question, you can use your raise hand function right now, and I will go to you in alphabetical order. So please do so. Now we'll start things off with Taylor Blewett at the Ottawa Citizen.
This may have been covered more in French, but I know, Ms. Amokar, you were just speaking about there was a change to the system in January that might be causing more sensitivity. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying about that.
Sure. Maybe Mario can better explain that to you, because we know that we changed something on the train. Since that time, we had 2 occurrences with freezing rain, so that's why we think maybe it could be that. But again, it's too early to say that. But we are trying to find why we had this issue. Mario, maybe you can just complete, please.
Sure, thanks, Madame Amokar. So, in an effort to improve the reliability of the vehicles, we have made some changes to the vehicles in the last 3 years. So we're looking at if any of these changes have somehow altered how the vehicle reacts and shuts down, maybe makes the vehicle a little bit more sensitive. So no stone left unturned. The vehicle is a huge part of our investigation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. We will go now to Ted Raymond at CTV Ottawa.
All right, thanks for taking additional questions. And I'm sorry to harp on this, but Troy, I just want to make sure that we're absolutely clear on these trains. So once you stop service, the remaining trains that weren't stuck, did they go back to the MSF, or are they still on the line right now?
They are still on the line right now, because we made the decision to stop. I'll say stop all service, but stop all train movements. So get the trains to the stations, park them there, and that was a conscious decision made to avoid any other potential trains becoming immobilized between stations, as well as as I indicated, and as well Mr. Guerra indicated, to prevent any further potential damage to other infrastructure.
Okay. So nothing's moving. They're stopped at respective stations or whatever. In the case of open stations, are they getting ice on them? Are you monitoring these things?
When we're ready to start back the service resumption, Mario will have a team that will go out and they can inspect the catenary, they can inspect the OCS, and they will be checking the trains. So this is part of the lessons learned from the last event. So that's exactly what we're doing. But we will send staff to those locations to check on the trains, check on the OCS before resuming service.
All right. Thank you, Ted. On va maintenant à Fred Pépin avec Radio-Canada.
Oui, j'aimerais savoir, est-ce qu'il y a eu des bris ou un bris
I'd like
quelconque?
to know if there were any damage to infrastructure in January. There was physical damage to the infrastructure, which delayed the restoration of service. So was there any damage this time? Well, for as far as we know, we can't really tell you whether there was damage. This is one of the reasons why we decided to stop service. It was to avoid the damage to infrastructure. Temperatures rising, so the ice will melt. We'll go out and inspect the catenary lines, and we'll decide at that point whether we can restart service. Nothing indicates that there was any damage. We'll have to do an inspection. A question for you, Ms. Amilcar. Can I do that, Seb? Thank you. Ms. Amilcar, there was a question in French, in English rather. What would you say to passengers who were stuck on the train for minutes or hours in some cases? And what would you say to other passengers to restore their trust in the service? Thank you for the question. First of all, I'm very disappointed to hear that communication was deficient. If there's something we've worked on very, very hard over the past few months, is that we'll check that out. Troy will do that. This is the very least that we owe our passengers, to keep them informed of what's happening. And we've taken major decisions today. We decided to close down the whole line from end to end. That's a brave decision. And I think it shows how we are working in partnership with our passengers. And my message is that it's a safe system. When we close it down, it's for the right reasons. And I would ask passengers to be patient. I know I've been asking them for patience for a year and a half. We're working, we're able to react quickly. There are lots of things that have improved over the past few months. Just give us a bit more time, a bit more patience. I'd like to thank the passengers for that. Thank you very much.
I guess we will finish things off with Joanne Canello at CBC Ottawa. Joanne, are you able to unmute? I think Joanne's having some technical issues. So Joanne, if you have any further questions, please follow up with media relations and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you everyone for joining us today. This actually concludes our media availability and hope everyone has a nice Wednesday.